This is the archaeology lab that is courtesy of the Museum of the Coastal Bend. And of course, I always like to remind people, the Museum of the Coastal Bend is an archaeological museum. Just about 100% of the artifacts in that museum were discovered through the archaeological process. Not everything, but almost. And so this lab does a lot of the work, everything from storage. This is where we separate materials that are found at the current archaeology site that is done in partnership with the Museum of the Coastal Bend and with Cobalt Archaeology. We also have a vault that stores artifacts and other materials that have yet to be processed. Then we have a lot of reference books here. Some of our senior archaeologists, Bill and Ricky, do a lot of the process work that has to be done to properly record all the artifacts that are found in the grid site. And this is primarily where a lot of that physical process work gets done. And basically what we're doing here is separating materials that were found in the grid that was dug up last week. While artifacts are kept separate, you never know what you're going to find that has to be separated from the dirt and the mud, and that's really what we're doing here. We typically find rocks and cobble, and will be weighed and discarded. We find fire-cracked rock, which is basically rock that was fired, or at least it experienced some intense heat at some point and possibly broke, possibly around the campfires where these ancient Indian cultures lived here outside Victoria. This particular container holds what we call chert. Now, chert and flakes like this are a result of Indian cultures making stone tools. And this is what's left over. These are weighed, documented, and stored, as is the fire-cracked rock. Then we also find here's some burnt bone that could possibly be dated to get a good time stamp as to when this culture was around. And we have a pretty good idea when they were around based on the elevations we're digging. But bone is here, and of course every culture has used small animals or game animals to survive with, and that's really what we're picking out of these materials here. This particular tray holds the remains of shell, which were a very important food source for Indian cultures. And then this particular tray is where we dump the buckets of materials in and separate out these things. We also have snail, again, another critical food source for Indian cultures back in the day, and of course we're separating the rocks out. The cultures that lived around Victoria at the site we're digging at right now, that's probably 7,000 to 9,000 years ago. And this is typical of the kinds of materials we find when we do archaeology just at the McNeil Ranch about 10 miles outside of Victoria.